The evening sky over the city of Enugu burned softly in shades of orange and dying gold, as if the sun itself was reluctant to disappear. In a quiet compound tucked behind a row of aging mango trees stood a modest two-bedroom apartment, freshly painted, silent, and heavy with memories that did not belong there. Inside, Chinaza stood by the window. Tall, slender, dark as polished ebony. Her beauty was the kind that made people look twice, but her eyes carried a weight no one her age should bear. It had been 2 years. 2 years since the accident. 2 years since the call that shattered her world. 2 years since she buried her husband and their unborn child. She closed her eyes, her fingers tightening against the curtain. She still remembered the day like a wound that refused to heal. Her husband. Her laughter. Her home. He had been everything, tall, broad-shouldered, with his neatly braided hair and that small birthmark on the side of his forehead. A mark she used to tease him about, a mark she used to kiss. But now, he was gone. The accident had been brutal. The kind that left nothing to see. Nothing to recognize. A closed casket. A burial without goodbye. And just weeks later, the grief had stolen her unborn child. 2 graves. 1 heart left behind. That was why she left. Left the town. Left the memories. Left the streets that whispered his name. She came to Enugu to forget. But forgetting is a dangerous illusion. Chinaza's eyes snapped open. A noise. Outside the compound. She frowned slightly and leaned closer to the window, gently pulling the curtain aside. A vehicle had just pulled in. A small moving truck. Men jumped down, unloading furniture, chairs, boxes, a mattress tied with worn rope. New tenants, she whispered under her breath. The apartment next door had been empty for months. She watched lazily at first, until she saw him. Her breath caught. No, it couldn't be. Her heart began to pound, slow at first, then violently. The man stepped out of the car. Tall, dark-skinned, broad shoulders. And then turned. Chinaza staggered backward. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Chucks," she whispered, her voice trembling. It was him. It was him. Not similar. Not close. Exact. The same face. The same eyes. The same braided hairstyle. Even the way he stood, the slight tilt of his head. Her chest tightened painfully. "This is not possible," she muttered. But then, the man suddenly looked up. Directly at her window. Their eyes met. Chinaza froze. For a moment, the world went silent. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look confused. He looked aware. As if he had always known she was there. As if he had been waiting. Chinaza quickly dropped the curtain, her hands shaking violently. "No, oh no, this is madness," she whispered. Her mind raced. "Maybe grief is playing tricks on you. Maybe you're imagining things. Maybe." But deep down, she knew what she saw. And it terrified her. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Time had lost meaning. But something inside her, something restless, something desperate, pushed her forward. She needed to know. She needed to see him up close. Slowly she walked to the door. Her fingers hovered over the handle. Her heart thundered like drums in her ears. "Just confirm," she told herself. "Just once." She opened the door. The compound air felt heavier now. Stranger. The man was outside, carrying a box. Closer now. Too close. Chinaza swallowed hard and stepped forward. "Hi," she stammered. The man turned. Their eyes met again. Up close, it was undeniable. Every detail. Every line. Every breath. He was Chuck's. But also not. "Yes," the man said calmly. His voice. Even his voice. Chinaza felt her knees weaken. "Why, you're the new tenant?" she asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Yes," he replied simply. No emotion. No curiosity. Just come. Chinaza stared at him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "Chinaza," she said. The pause. Something flickered in his eyes. Or maybe she imagined it. "I see," he said. Nothing more. Nothing less. Her confusion deepened. "You look like someone I know," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. The man's face hardened, just for a second. Then, suddenly he turned away from her. "Chinaza," he called out. A small girl about 5 years old ran toward him, laughing. Chinaza's breath hitched. Did he just? "Let's go inside," the man said to the child. The girl grabbed his hand happily. "Yes, Daddy." Chinaza stood frozen. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred. What did you just call her?" she whispered. But they were already walking away. The girl turned slightly, her bright eyes meeting Chinaza's. And she smiled. A familiar smile. Too familiar. The door to their apartment shut quietly. Silence returned. But it was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. Chinaza slowly stepped backward, her body trembling uncontrollably. Her mind tried to piece everything together. The face. The voice. The birthmark. Her eyes widened. She hadn't checked. She rushed back outside. The door next door was closed. But she had to be sure. Moments later, the door opened again. The man stepped out briefly. And this time, she saw it clearly. The birthmark. Same position. Same shape. Same everything. Chinaza felt the world spin. "This is not coincidence," she whispered. "This is something else. Something dark. Something unnatural." That night, sleep did not come. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound felt like a warning. And sometime past midnight, she heard it. A faint whisper. Right outside her window. Calling. "Chinaza." Her eyes snapped open. Her body froze. The voice. It was his. "Chinaza, open the door." Her heart pounded violently. "No," she whispered, backing away. "But if you don't open it..." The pause. Silence. "I will come in myself." Chinaza's breath stopped. Tears filled her eyes as fear gripped her soul. Very slowly, she turned toward the door. And then, bang. Something hit it from the outside. Bang. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. And then she heard it. A second voice. From inside the room. Right behind her. "Why are you afraid of me, Chinaza?" She turned. Slowly. Terrified. And what she saw made her scream. The scream tore through the night like a wounded spirit. Chinaza stumbled backward, her legs giving way beneath her as her back hit the cold wall. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps, her eyes wide with a terror that had no name. Standing behind her was him. Not the man outside. Not the one who had just moved in. This one was different. His body flickered like a flame struggling against the wind. His skin, ashen, pale beneath its dark tone, seemed stretched between two worlds. His braided hair hung loosely, unmoving as though untouched by air. And his eyes glowed faintly. Not bright, not violent, but hollow, like something that had seen the other side and never returned whole. "Chucks," Chinaza whispered, her voice barely audible. Her heart shattered all over again. "I buried you," she cried softly. "I buried you." The figure tilted his head slowly, studying her. A familiar gesture. A painful memory. "Did you?" he asked quietly. His voice echoed, not just in the room, but inside her head. Bang. The door shook violently again. "Chinaza, open the door," the other voice called. The living one. Or what she thought was living. Chinaza covered her ears, shaking her head. No, this is not real. I'm dreaming. This is grief. This is madness," she muttered. But deep inside, she knew. This was neither dream nor madness. This was something older. Something deeper. Something that refused to stay buried. The spirit stepped closer. Each movement slow, unnatural, like time itself bent around him. "You left me," he said. Tears streamed down Chinaza's face instantly. "No, I didn't leave you," she cried. "You died. They told me you died. They buried you." The spirit's face darkened. "They buried something," he said. "But it was not me." The room fell silent. Even the pounding on the door stopped. Chinaza's chest tightened. What are you saying?" she whispered. The spirit raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the door. That man, he said slowly. He took my name. A cold chill ran down Chinaza's spine. He walks in my body, but he is not me. Outside, footsteps shifted. Then silence. A soft knock. Gentle. Almost polite. Chinaza, the voice called again. Why are you afraid of your husband? Her blood ran cold. The spirit leaned closer now, his face inches from hers. Do not open that door, he whispered urgently. But Chinaza shook her head, confused and terrified. He has a wife, a child. They called her Chinaza. The spirit's expression twisted in pain. That is not a child, he said. The room seemed to shrink. And that is not a family. Chinaza felt her breath disappear completely. Then, what are they? She whispered. The spirit didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped back, his form flickering more violently now. As though time was running out. They are echoes, he finally said. Echoes of what was stolen. So, the door handle began to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. Chinaza screamed and stumbled backward. I locked it, she cried. I locked the door. The handle kept turning. It stopped. Silence. A soft laugh. Not loud. Not wild. But wrong. Deeply wrong. Locks do not keep me out, the voice said calmly. The temperature in the room dropped sharply. Chinaza could see her own breath now. The spirit turned to her again, urgency in his fading form. You must listen carefully, he said. There is something you were never told. Chinaza nodded frantically, tears blinding her vision. The accident, he continued, his voice breaking. It was not an accident. Her heart skipped. What? She whispered. They came for me, he said. But I did not understand, not until it was too late. So, bang. The door shook again, louder this time. Stronger. Open the door, Chinaza, the voice commanded now, no longer gentle. The spirit winced as though the sound hurt him. They needed a life, he said quickly. A strong one. A bound soul. And I. He paused. His voice trembled. I was chosen. Chinaza shook her head, unable to process it. Chosen? By who? The spirit's glowing eyes darkened. By those who live between shadows and flesh, he said. Those who borrow faces and wear lives like clothes. Chinaza's knees gave way completely. She collapsed to the floor. No, no, she whispered repeatedly. So, the door began to crack. Wood splintered slowly. Something was forcing its way in. They couldn't take me completely, the spirit continued. I fought. I held on. That is why I am here. His voice softened. I came back for you. Tears poured endlessly down Chinaza's face. And our child, she asked weakly. The spirit froze. For the first time, fear crossed his face. Our child, he whispered. The lights flickered violently. The walls creaked. So, the door burst open. A powerful wind rushed into the room, carrying dust, whispers, and something darker. Chinaza turned slowly. Standing at the doorway was the man, the new tenant. But now, he was no longer pretending. His smile stretched too wide. They were not human. And beside him, the little girl, still smiling, still watching. Family should not be separated, the man said softly. His voice layered. Many voices, speaking as one. Chinaza screamed. The spirit of Chucks stepped forward, placing himself between her and the doorway. You will not take her, he said firmly. The man chuckled. You could not even save yourself, he replied. The air grew heavier, darker, more dangerous. The little girl suddenly spoke, in a voice far older than her body. She already belongs to us. Chinaza froze. What do you mean? She whispered. The girl tilted her head slowly and smiled wider. You forgot, didn't you? She said. Chinaza's heart stopped. Forgot what? The spirit turned sharply toward her, realization dawning in his fading eyes. No, he whispered. No, that's not possible. The girl's voice echoed unnaturally. When you buried him. The pause. The room held its breath. You buried something else with him? Chinaza's mind raced. Her memory scrambled. The funeral. The coffin. The pain. The darkness. Her eyes widened in horror. No, she whispered. No, I didn't. The man stepped forward slowly, his shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. Oh yes, he said. You did. The spirit screamed. Chinaza, run. But it was too late. The girl raised her hand slowly and pointed directly at Chinaza's stomach, a place that had once held life, a place she thought was empty, a place she thought she had lost forever. And then, Chinaza felt it. A movement. From within. Her breath stopped. Her hands trembled as they slowly moved to her belly. Another movement. Stronger this time. Alive. Impossible. Her eyes filled with terror as she looked up. The girl smiled. That child. A long pause. Was never buried. The room exploded into chaos. The spirit screamed. The man laughed. The lights shattered. And Chinaza, she let out a cry that echoed beyond the living world. The cry that escaped Chinaza's lips did not sound human. It was raw, ancient, torn from a place deeper than grief, deeper than fear. Her hands clutched her stomach as another movement surged from within her. Alive. Growing. Impossible. No, no, this cannot be, she whispered, her voice shaking violently. Tears blurred her vision as she staggered backward, her mind unraveling under the weight of what she was feeling. I lost the baby. I buried my child, she cried. But her body was telling a different story. Another movement. Stronger. Intentional. The little girl stepped forward slowly, her tiny feet making no sound against the floor. Her smile widened unnaturally, stretching beyond innocence. You did not lose the child, she said, her voice layered with something old, something inhuman. You were made to forget. Chinaza's breathing grew erratic. Her memories began to shift. Crack open. Flashes, like broken glass, cut through her mind. The funeral. The closed casket. The elders whispering in low tones. Strangers she did not recognize standing too close. Watching her. Murmuring words she did not understand. Her eyes widened. No, she whispered. The spirit of Chucks turned to her urgently, his fading form flickering like a dying flame. They altered your memory, he said. They needed you weak, broken, so you would not question anything. The man at the doorway laughed softly. A hollow, echoing sound. And it worked perfectly, he said. He stepped further into the room now, his presence suffocating the air itself. We took what we needed and gave you silence in return. Chinaza shook her head violently. Why? She cried. Why us? The room pulsed. The walls seemed to breathe. The man's smile faded into something darker. Because your bloodline carries a gate, he said. A passage between worlds. The words hung in the air like a curse. And your child, he continued slowly, his eyes gleaming with something unnatural, is the key. Chinaza froze. Her hands trembled against her stomach. No, she whispered. Not my child. The spirit of Chuck stepped closer to her, his voice urgent, desperate. Listen to me, he said. They could not fully take the child while it was inside you. So they separated its essence, split it between realms. Chinaza's breath caught. That is why you thought you lost it, he continued. But the child has been growing, feeding, waiting. A deep, unnatural silence filled the room. The little girl giggled softly. Needing to be born properly. The lights flickered violently. A low rumble shook the walls. Chinaza screamed as another sharp movement tore through her body. Intense. Something was happening. The spirit turned to her, fear flooding his fading eyes. They are forcing the birth, he said. If it happens here, if it happens under their control. He couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Chinaza understood. Her child would not be human. It would not belong to her. It would belong to them. No, she cried, shaking her head. I won't let that happen. The man's expression darkened instantly. "You do not have a choice," he said coldly. The shadows in the room began to stretch and twist, creeping along the walls like living things. The little girl raised her hands slowly. The air thickened. The pressure became unbearable. Chinaza fell to her knees, screaming as the pain intensified. "Chucks!" she cried desperately. The spirit dropped beside her, his fading hands hovering over hers. "There is one way," he said. Her eyes locked onto his. "One way to stop them." "Tell me," she cried. His voice trembled. "You must close the gate." "How?" she screamed. The pause. A painful one. His eyes softened. "With blood and sacrifice." Chinaza's heart stopped. "No," she whispered. The truth settled over her like a death sentence. "If the child is born," he continued, his voice breaking, "the gate will open permanently. Their world will merge with ours." The man smiled again. "Yes," he said softly, "and a new order will begin." Chinaza looked down at her stomach. Another violent movement. Tears streamed endlessly down her face. "My child," she whispered. Her voice broke completely. "I waited for you. I prayed for you." The spirit placed his hand gently over hers. "And now, you must protect the world from it." Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. Chinaza closed her eyes. Her body trembled. Her soul screamed. But deep within her, a mother's strength rose. Not soft, not gentle, but fierce, terrifying, resolute. She opened her eyes slowly, and for the first time, there was no fear in them, only decision. "What must I do?" she asked quietly. The spirit looked at her and nodded. "Break the bond," he said, "before it fully awakens." The man's expression shifted, just slightly. Concern. For the first time. "No," he said slowly. Chinaza struggled to her feet, her body shaking violently. But she stood, unyielding. The little girl screamed suddenly. "Stop her!" The shadows lunged forward. But the spirit of Chucks rose with a burst of fading light, blocking them. "I will hold them," he said. "Do it now." Chinaza let out a cry and clutched her stomach tightly. The pain was unbearable. But she pushed through it. Through tears. Through fear. Through love. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And then, with a final, heart-wrenching scream, she broke the bond. A blinding light exploded through the room. The shadows shrieked. The man screamed in rage. The little girl's voice distorted into something monstrous. The walls cracked. The air shattered. And then, silence. Total. Absolute. Chinaza collapsed to the ground. Still, unmoving. The room returned to normal. The darkness was gone. The man, gone. The girl, gone. The presence, gone. Only the soft morning light filtered through the broken window. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning anymore. Chinaza stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. But alive. She looked down at her stomach. Flat, still, empty. Tears filled her eyes again. But this time, they were different. Not just grief, but understanding. A soft breeze moved through the room. And for a brief moment, she felt it. A warmth. Familiar. Gentle. She turned her head slowly. And there, near the doorway, she saw him. Not broken. Not flickering. At peace. He smiled. The same smile she fell in love with. "Thank you," he said softly. Her lips trembled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "You saved us." The pause. "And you saved the world." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she watched him. "Will I see you again?" she asked. His smile softened. "In another life." And then, he was gone. Chinaza closed her eyes. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt complete. Outside, the city of Enugu awakened. Life moved on. People laughed. Children played, unaware of the darkness that had almost consumed everything. Chinaza slowly sat up. Broken, but not destroyed. She had lost everything. Yet somehow, she had saved something greater. And as the sun rose fully into the sky, a new story began.
My dear friends, lovers of stories, if this story touched your heart, then you are already part of our storytelling family. Hit the subscribe button right now and join us here on Telltale Stories TV.